So we've already kind of looked at some of this, and really my main focus is the spatial distribution and diffusion of these religions. So I'm not as worried about the history. When we talk about diffusions of religions, I want y'all to make sure that you associate Southwest Asia, okay, with Christianity, Islam, and Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Southwest Asia with the Abrahamic faiths, and South Asia, in other words, India, basically the Indian subcontinent, as the starting point for the hearths, if you will, for Buddhism and India and Hinduism. This right here kind of shows that diffusion process, with the Abrahamic faiths having started in both Israel, and also here is where Mecca would have been. This is the origin, the hearth of Islam, all right, which spread throughout North Africa and even parts of Asia and Indonesia. And then this right here is the hearth of Buddhism, and the hearth of Hinduism would kind of be over this way in current day Pakistan. Not going to spend too much time on this because I'm running out of time, but when we look at religion and we look at Christianity, I want you guys to know that Christianity, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, diffused in all different manners of diffusion that we're talking about, both relocation and expansion, okay? So early Christians would have moved to larger cities, right? They would have relocated, okay, and then told people in those large cities about God and tried to spread Christianity. This is a form of hierarchical diffusion. I've got a map here that shows some of your earliest cities. You've got cities like, as I try to get a little closer, Corinth, Ephesus, Antioch, Philippi, Thessalonica. Many of the epistles or many of the New Testament writings of Paul were based on his writings, his letters to these particular large cities where Christianity first started in Eastern Mediterranean region. So that's hierarchical diffusion. Then from those particular points of, those particular cities, it began to diffuse contagiously throughout those areas to people that lived in more rural areas. And then eventually Paul moves over here to Rome. Now, Rome at this time was starting to struggle a little bit in the West. The West was kind of falling apart. Diocletian, who was very, very mean to Christians, very big persecutor, moved the capital over to Constantinople. And under Emperor Constantine, it went from being called, it actually became called Constantinople. It went from being called, not Byzantium, that was later. What was it called before that? I can't remember. But it started being called Constantinople named after Constantine. And then he actually makes the official religion of the Roman Empire Christianity. That's another example of hierarchical diffusion. And then relocation diffusion of Catholic Christianity would be when it moves overseas into the Americas, which we've already discussed. Islam, we've already said that it spreads from Africa, or I guess from Southwest Asia into North Africa, and a little bit even further north into Turkey. This is during the earliest expansion of Islam under the Caliphates, the Umayyad and Abbasid Caliphates. This right here is a picture of the mosque at Cordoba in Spain. So we don't think about usually Islam being a big deal religion in Spain, because today we know from that we just looked at that Spain is predominantly Catholic. But up until the late 1400s, the southern Iberian Peninsula was actually controlled by Muslims. And it wasn't until King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, the same monarchs as St. Christopher Columbus overseas, all right, they were the ones that finished kicking out the Muslim presence in southern Spain in the end of a period known as the Reconquista, or the reconquest of southern Spain by Christian monarchs. All right, and then you've got the Inquisition after that, which is designed to get rid of all Jews and Muslims, anyone who's not Catholic Christian. Islam, relocation diffusion of missionaries. Religion has reached sub-Saharan Africa as well. Sub-Saharan Africa is mainly going to be a combination of a bunch of different faiths, such as your indigenous faiths, such as Christianity, but there's some Islam down there as well. Also, migrations of Muslims from Africa and Middle East has increased Muslim populations in Europe. So if you watch the news, and you just got done with migration, you surely had learned about Syrian migration that really came to a big point in the Western world in 2014. And it's still going on. You've still got the Syrian civil war. You've still got tons of Syrian refugees and other African refugees who are Muslim moving into Europe, which has affected the religious distribution of people living in Europe. So if you look here at this map, it's showing by millions how many Muslims are living in this area. I think this map is, it's relatively current. I don't know exactly what the year is on it, but Germany is has the largest Muslim presence. I'm knocking over my trash can here. Germany has the largest Muslim presence, followed by France and the United Kingdom. Okay. One of the things that the British were looking at whenever they were deciding whether or not they're going to do the whole Brexit thing was immigration through the European Union. They wanted to have tighter controls on immigration, kind of a common political theme, to be honest with you. And in order to do that, they would need to have the ability to be more strict on their borders. So that's part of the debate on why they decided to go with Brexit. We're supposed to be watching and learning about religion and talking about grades. Hey, if you guys are paying attention, y'all can talk about whatever you want to talk about over there. Just keep it clean. Buddhism, in terms of its diffused relatively slowly from its origin in the northeastern India. You've got emperors and kingdoms and stuff. For example, the Magadha Emperor Ashoka. Ashoka is how you pronounce that. Would have spread Buddhism a lot in that area and eventually into China. Buddhism today doesn't have a large presence. Doesn't have a large presence at all in India. Most people who practice Buddhism has left or they went back to Hinduism. But know that Buddhism emerged from India. I guess what was then part of India is now present-day Nepal. Siddhartha Gautama was actually the son of a warrior king and was, according to legend, either destined to be a warrior king, the best of warrior kings like his father, or a wandering, what's the word they use? Like a holy man, like a wise man, religious teacher. And according to the story, he wasn't supposed to ever experience misery of any kind, but he eventually did and became the Buddha or the enlightened one. This here shows the diffusion of Buddhism throughout Southeast Asia and even into Japan, where today most people are going to be are secular, but you do still see Buddhism combined with Shinto there. Other religions that we want to know about, just kind of we're going to mention them in passing here. They're highlighted a little bit in the Rubicine text. Is Jainism, which is predominantly in India, all right? Shinto, which is exclusively in Japan. Taoism, which is a Chinese indigenous faith, and then other indigenous regions like Native American religions, like sub-Saharan African religions. Other universalizing religions is, I've already mentioned Sikhism, but you've also got Baha'i, founded by a guy named Baha'u'llah in the 1800s, just before the Civil War, somewhere in the mid-1800s. This dude named Baha'u'llah in Persia, which is today Iran, founded Baha'i. Baha'i is how you say this, which is a universalizing religion, very, very new, and also all-inclusive. They believe in the idea that God has revealed himself through literally every holy religious founder that's ever lived. So they will look at Confucius as the words of God, as Jesus, as Muhammad, at Abraham, at Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. All these different individuals would, according to the Baha'i faith, be a part of the teachings of God. Today, I really don't know, to be honest with you, where Baha'i is most located. I know that they were heavily persecuted in Iran, which is predominantly today Shia Muslim. I should know that off the top of my head. I don't. Their numbers are very, very small. I know that we do have a lot of Baha'i in the United States as well. So it's perhaps the majority in the United States. My guess would be U.S. and Europe, but I really don't know for sure. So maybe I'll follow through with that on next week and just kind of quickly tell y'all to the best of my ability. Sorry, I didn't know that offhand. This one here shows Jainism. Okay, again in India, Don't need to know a whole lot of that. Just associate Jainism with India. Shintoism and Buddhism. All right, so you've got different maps that show different things. The common theme here is that Shinto and Buddhism blend together in Japan. They're syncretic. Okay, so I wanted you guys to be able to make that association. Remember what we talked about with ethnic cultures. Okay, I already made this point that ethnic religions are is India and then U.S. for Baha'i. Is that what you're saying, Vince? Great. Thank you so much for that confirmation. I appreciate it. When we look at ethnic religions, they are like ethnic or like folk culture. Okay. Nobody wakes up in the morning trying to grow up to be Hindu or Jewish. Okay. People do try to actively convert you into Christianity and Islam. The difference is kind of like the difference between ethnic and universalized religions is very similar to the difference between folk and popular culture. Jarvis studied the impacts of the landscape made by religions. In Christianity, it's the church. In Europe, in Western Europe and Southern Europe, you had cathedrals, used to be the largest structures in these medieval villages for the longest time. Today, cathedrals are going to be more located in the ancient part of those cities, but there are bigger skyscrapers and things like that. Baha'i houses of worship are all over the place. Islam you associate with mainly the Middle East, but also Indonesia, obviously. And also regionally, these churches are going to look different. In the south of the United States, it's mostly Protestant churches. You've got your old country churches, as small and as adorable as they can possibly be. You've got some large churches as well. The church that I go to is the largest, I guess, the tallest building in my city, if you count the steeple. Okay, the Buddhists worship in pagodas, which is not like a church. We think about church, we think about a congregational worship. In other words, you get together, you have corporate worship, everyone together singing hymns and praying to God, and listen to one guy up here talk from a pulpit. When you go into a Buddhist pagoda or even a Hindu temple, it's not like that. You go in, you kind of do your own thing, you worship your family gods or whatever it might be, and then you move on. These are here examples of pagodas. I want to see that picture comes out of the Rubicine text. Pilgrimages. I'm trying to go quick so we can get through it. Pilgrimages. Many religions will have, all religions have pilgrimages. In Buddhism, they go to places where Siddhartha Gautama had traveled during his time. Very holy sites. Probably the biggest and most important pilgrimage that you guys need to know about for human geography. Not the only one, but probably the most important is the Hajj. Okay, it happens every single year, where if you're a Muslim, at least once in your lifetime, you're supposed to go to the Kaaba. All right, I've got that somewhere on here. This here is the places where Siddhartha did his preaching as the Buddha. The Hajj is where all Muslims from all over the world will go into Saudi Arabia at this particular place at the Al-Haram Mosque, which is where where Islam started. This is where the Kaaba had been there long before Islam as a somewhat of a symbol of monotheism, because it was said to be built by Abraham. But eventually, Arabic tribes would use this as a place to worship their gods while they were doing trade in Mecca, which was a holy city even then, that they wouldn't fight each other there. It's the only place where they wouldn't fight. All right. But then when Muhammad came, he established monotheism, which is the core concept of Islam. It's a belief in one God. That's why there is no Holy Trinity, because they don't want to take any focus off of God the Father, or whatever, Allah as they call him. But then the Kaaba is the holiest site in all of Islam. The second holiest site in all of Islam is the Mosque of the Prophet, which is this place here in Medina, because you guys may have learned about the Hijra, which is a one-time migration from Mecca into Medina. For the Muslims were being killed by, they were the people of Mecca. The Meccan government was going to try to kill, so they fled to Medina. 10 years later, they came back and conquered Mecca, and the people there were so, I guess, moved by Muhammad's compassion. He didn't kill them based on the tribal ways. and they actually accepted Islam. It became the official religion, if you will, of the Arabic of Arabia, which at the time everyone kind of had their own set of tribal gods that they worshipped at the time. So Islam really did bring the Arabs together as a single person, as a single group of people. Okay, so disposing of the dead. In Christianity and Islam, and really in the Abrahamic faith, you see more burial and more cemeteries. All right. In Hinduism, they practice cremation in a very particular way. They will build these cremation pyres, a pyre, Pyre, and they'll put the body inside it and then burn it up. Now, you've got a lot of Hindus living in India, 900 million or so Hindus living in India, almost 1 billion people strong, burning their dead. As much as possible near the Ganges River, for example, or maybe a few other places. But that is actually kind of ecologically not good for the environment. There's been pushes to try to use more eco-friendly, maybe like a fake wood for this, like a synthetic wood for the burning, so that they can continue to adhere to their religious practice. But many conservatives and traditionalists in India are really against changing that up. So anyway, cremation in India with Hinduism, burial with the Abrahamic faiths. You see a lot of toponymy centered on religious. I guess here's a map that shows in Quebec you've got a lot of different places named after saints and other religious figures within Catholic Christianity, right? But hierarchical religions are going to be those that have like the Pope, for example, Catholic Christianity, and Mormonism. They have a head of the Mormon faith for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Here are some examples of the regional diocese or archdiocese, which is headed up by a bishop in Catholicism. All right, and then the last thing I was going to show you was a very quick talk about Jerusalem, but since I'm just about out of time, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Definitely take the time to go in and read on Jerusalem, okay? It's a very, very small area in the historic city, but it's shared by all three of the Abrahamic faiths, okay? Christianity and the Christian quarter, which is where Jesus was said to be buried, in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. And then over here is the Haram al-Sharif Mosque, the Dome of the Rock. And then over here is where the Temple Mount is. Actually, all of this is the Temple Mount. And this here is where the Western Wall, which is the western wall of the Jewish temple, the only remaining part of the temple that still exists today, the holiest site in all of Judaism.